All right, welcome for the afternoon sessions. So we're starting almost on time, unlike this morning. Just a quick word to introduce this conversation. It's really a conversation, and I'll invite you also to participate in the conversation. I wanted to have Danielle and Troy here on stage to talk about the practice of the gesture of drawing, like specifically movement and how this translates into VR. In VR, illustrators, people with a background in drawing, have the possibility to free one more dimension. There's no longer just a small movement on a paper with a pencil or even a painting. We are having the whole arm and the whole body involved in the drawing. So what I find very interesting in this is how does that translate in a medium like VR that is capable of actually showing this, showing how a gesture is translated, how is it viewed, perceived. Do we see something like an aura? Do we see the intention of the hand that we have in drawing? When seeing a drawing that's made by hand, there is something very organic that basically happens. Which is basically the artist's intention. Some people call this the intention of the hand. And so in VR, maybe there is an intention of the gesture. So I'd like to ask you guys first to say a few words about your practice as illustrators. Both of you have been doing VR. Perhaps let's start with Danielle. You are doing Shoebox Diorama. This is a very interesting take on VR. It's been presented at Amaze before. You're actually part of the jury this year. And you have this very particular look, but also use of the space. Can you describe in a few words what Shoebox is about? You can use this one.
That's 1, 2, 3. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's see. Well, I create what I call dioramas, and basically those are interactive illustrations. So each diorama is a new environment, and all environments are hand-painted, so on top of 3D geometry. And in doing so, I get the same control I have when doing like a normal illustration. So I can show some normal illustration work of mine, non-digital stuff. These are just for fun. And you see, you have the control of a pencil or something to, make the look of texture, a woolen sweater or whatever. And the way how this translates into VR, wait, let me just show this one. Like the cool thing in VR, when you texture an environment and you just use normal textures, you have a lot of repeating textures, and people will, witness that as being fake. So you have to use a randomness to all the texturing to make it feel like every inch is unique. So basically, I go around a scene and just brush in all the lights, all the shadows. So I have full control over the player perspective, where he looks at, things like that. So basically this is a rough prototype based on an actual scene. And this is very close to what the final scene actually looks like, because I just project my illustrations on top of the 3D geometry. So you have a tremendous amount of control, and like in normal video game production, you reuse a lot of texturing, and that's something that's, you shouldn't do in virtual reality. Or, I don't want to become too specific in technical terms, but you have some ways of creating randomness in tiling textures as well. But in virtual reality, just treat every little detail as if it's important.
Yeah. So, and I think this part of your aim is to really translate as much as we can see in your drawings into a virtual reality. I'd like to make a parallel with Troy practice as well. Troy has been drawing in VR exploring what we can do with Titlbrush and that kind of already three-dimensional type of body-based drawings. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Hello. Hi. So I've done two VR projects. One is a collaborative sculpture project. I just showed it 20 minutes ago if you were here. It's called Home Zone. And the other one, which Fabian is talking about, is an interactive music video game, I guess, which I created entirely within Titlbrush itself. So I didn't make 3D assets in another program and import them into VR. I literally created the whole thing inside of VR. I could show screenshots. I mean, the full thing goes for like 5 minutes, so maybe let's not show that. Where is this folder? 1 second. Back. Okay. So this is the Titlbrush one I made. I'll show you screenshots. Yep. So it's like I mean the video itself is like maybe 8 or 9 like illustrations that are completely surrounding you, and it was really interesting to do this. I think. I mean, should I just give an introduction now?
Yeah, I think it's to explain what Signia is and how this is a music video made in Titlbrush.
Yep. Or I'll show some more.
Yes.
Yeah. So here's some more scenes from it. Yeah, and with all this, there's a lot of like more traditional illustration techniques going on. As in, I use a specific brush which isn't lit, so I'm painting with like pure colors because I didn't like. You know, or like I feel like it was the only way to really paint something with an intention inside Titlbrush. So like all the lighting and stuff is actually like different colored brushes. Like there's no lighting in the scene at all, which means also I'm painting stuff like the atmosphere and so forth to make depth is actually not real. It's like I'm just painting stuff that's like more desaturated, like classic painting techniques to create this sense of distance. Like a lot of these things aren't actually that far away, they're just very small and they're desaturated. Like you can see that especially like in this sand that's like blocked into 3 colors and stuff like this, or this seaweed. You can see it's getting more desaturated and darker the further it goes, but it's only like 2 meters away. So it's like this forced perspective that was interesting to use in an illustration.
Was it? How did you find like making a whole experience in Titlbrush? Because just to be clear, so it's about 5 minutes long, right?
Yeah.
The music video, and it's all chains, like one illustration after another, which is very new as a storytelling technique or even a kind of sequential medium. And so I'm curious about how long did it take you to produce that?
It took a very long time, and I think an interesting thing based on my own experiences is that I think a lot of people are making VR content, but there's not many people that are spending very long amounts of time in VR. And when I was doing this, I was spending 8 hours plus a day in virtual reality. And it really started to mess with my brain. It's like, when people say when they play too much Tony Hawk, everything's like a skate ramp or whatever. It's like, it was like that, except literally like the fabric of space. Like I would like try and stretch like the world around me and make it bigger and smaller, like subconsciously, like having this, like I wouldn't do this actions, but I like would feel like I could every now and then. Like if something's too far away, I could just shrink the world and then grab it and then expand it up again, or stuff like this. Yeah, I kind of lost my mind while I was making this, but it was fun.
Yeah, I think just to stay with this in a moment, because a lot of a lot of artists working with computers is a lot of time spent into computing, like mimicking the idea of the program, understanding the program, trying to make the best use of it. I think, Daniel, that's what you're also referring to, is like how to translate this illustration, which are not part of a program, into a program. So without talking technical, I'm interested in that struggle. Do you find it a struggle? Do you embrace the process? Are you waiting for more tools?
I'm definitely waiting for tools. Like on the Oculus, you have something that's called Oculus Medium, which is basically a VR sculpting tool, and it's very, very convenient. So normally I would, do the sketches on paper, which is a lot of fun, and I think you always are going to do the sketches on paper first. And then the next step would be to actually create a 3D environment, which takes a lot of time. Then you have to go into Unity, put it into Unity, do the lighting, then put on your goggles, then you're in virtual reality. Then you have to go back to 3ds Max and the whole iterative cycle. And like with Oculus Medium, I mean, it isn't that advanced yet, but you can go in, put on the goggles, and sculpt the whole environment, paint on top of the 3D geometry. And then you have a very good mock-up. So it's very convenient to be so free that you can just be there in virtual reality and really go around and paint all of the objects in the room. So hopefully they keep on improving the stuff and make them better. And also fun thing is, like, I think they're also going to introduce a multiplayer option. So when I work together with a different modeler or something, we can just meet up in 3D space and do a sculpt together, or do a rough layout together, which is a lot of fun and it's very convenient. Then it really becomes like a creative process where you don't really have to think about all of the technical details.
So at the moment, are you sketching with Oculus Medium?
Yeah, but just like the pre-phase, because it isn't as good enough to be actual,
Right.
create productional assets or anything.
And are you still doing the pen and paper drawings?
Always.
All right.
Yeah,
And
that's the
so
most fun.
how differently do you use each mediums, like the Oculus Medium sketching versus the pen and paper sketching?
Well, it's actually like the Oculus Medium is just the same. I mean, that's the fun thing about how they approach sculpting, for example, or painting in Titlbrush or painting in Quill. I mean, for me, there isn't a lot of difference between drawing on paper and doing all of the technical stuff as well. It's just as using a new tool or using a new pencil or using a new color. And the more I practice, the easier, things become, because, creating a shader or something is also, the same mindset as, drawing a painting or using a certain material. So the more practice you get with all of the technical things, the more, fluent you are in these things, and then you get into the same flow of just creating, which is a lot of fun. So, that's why I still sketch on like large pieces of paper and then do all of the environments and with ink, and then ink in every little detail and stuff before I actually start. Because you don't have distractions, you can, completely focus on all the IDs. And in the end, you have this huge paper with all the IDs neatly organized, which is a lot of fun. And new tools can definitely improve that.
Is there a specific mindset also that drawings put you into?
Pardon me?
Is there a specific mindset that drawing on paper put you into? Is it this
it's more. You can be very, very focused. You don't have to, focus on other things. But like the whole process of coming up with things, for me, it's not very different to do something. Like the mindset isn't very different if I do it in virtual reality or on paper, because in my mind I'm just walking around the environment anyway. So it's just that it's visually an environment you can actually walk in, so you can share it with other people. Like normally I have to do all of the illustrations and stuff, but if I can invite like somebody else into, for example, Oculus Medium, we can start sculpting together, and then it's like more a collaborative process where you actually share that mindset, which is a lot of fun to do.
For you, Troy, on this, you talked about being immersed in for 8 hours in VR and this kind of fucking up your minds a little bit. Do you see a zone in which it gets you to paint in Titlbrush that is specific? And if yes, what it is exactly that's special?
What do you mean, a zone?
A zone in a mindset whereby you start to immerse yourself in the practice, and because you have this direct feedback on what you're doing, you can forget the program.
Something I like a lot about working in virtual reality is a computer now is like it's everything. Like, you know, it's your way of communication, it's your like entertainment, it's how you work. And when you go to like something like Titlbrush, it's like you exist in a world of art creation, and there's nothing else. And so I find I can get so focused and really like you're not doing these disruptive bad habits of like, you know, flipping to Facebook every 5 minutes or without even realizing. Yeah, so I really like this about working inside virtual reality is like until, you know, social media will fuck it up and you'll have a Facebook interface on top of Titlbrush or whatever, there will be, right now it's like super pure. Yes, about being in the zone, I mean, you get very in the zone. Like you know, I'd be painting, maybe, I remember, this one's clearer. So like you can see there's like a ground plane and then there's like sky. I would be painting on top of nothing and then look down and just feel like I was about to fall to my death, like for like a second. And it's kind of like you have so many reactions to things that you can't anticipate in VR, I think. Like it's seeing the same thing on a screen and in virtual reality is incredibly different. Which I think also means that it's difficult to create screen-based things inside virtual reality. Like I feel like this music video didn't translate very well as a non-VR experience. And I have seen many amazing VR projects like Gabibo's Loon, for example, that I thought were amazing, and then you show a video and it just doesn't have that same power that the virtual reality experience does. I mean, I think this has been said a million times, so I apologize for saying that again. But yeah, I think it's true though.
Well, that's one of the reasons why we also show it at the back, and that's really ready for you guys to experience, like really what it's like. But the practice of doing it is also new, and that's not been said too much. Like this kind of things that happen when you spend a lot of time in VR, like we are maybe set to do in a few years. That's kind of for that, I think you guys are trailblazers in the sense that you are in these digital worlds and that you manipulate, that you make your own, and that's a practice. Do you think it's something that is accessible? Do you find it hard to do this long hours into it, or it's natural?
You mean working on the experiences?
Yeah, creating worlds like that.
Well, I think it's actually it's more difficult to do, of course, because it's more work than, you know. For example, like in virtual reality, every small thing matters. So, you know, because you can, you know, come up very close to, for example, a scratch on a table, and in a normal game, you just walk past the table. So there's a tremendous amount of work that goes into small details. Which is what, for me at least, virtual reality makes so special, because you get a chance to really take in all of the small details, and those details make up the world. You got different ways of, immersing the visitor in your world. I mean, for example, something like Job Simulator gives you a very different feeling of immersion than, let's say, like a experience type virtual reality experience. It's very similar, but it's different nonetheless. And a traditional game is even, I mean, you can't really do a side-scrolling game, for example, in virtual reality. So there's a tremendous amount of work that goes into the world building in creating the believable spaces. And in a sense, it's also easier because it's a lot of fun to be in your own space and see it evolve. So,
something I've discovered when working inside virtual reality is I've been making visuals on a computer since I was a kid, forever. So all the art I've ever made my body has been very static. Like I've just been like clicking, and I get now why that's bad. I mean, not to sound too crazy, but like when you're physically moving and like using like your full body to do gestures and to walk from one side of the room to another to make a stroke or to, it's so much more physical. And I just think that this, if illustration or whatever is like a human thing, then like it just makes so much more sense to not be constrained just like by these tiny movements. And I think this is actually how it has been for a very long time. But then since we moved into computers, this kind of visual creation has become a much more static thing for you as a creator. So yeah, it's like, I mean, this is the thing that most interests me about VR is actually just this physical relationship to computer imagery. I think that's really the one and only reason I think for me I am really into it.
Yeah, free the body.
Yeah.
Do you have that impression as well, Danielle? Do you free your body in VR?
I definitely leave my body when I'm in VR. It's a good thing. Usually when you have that feeling that you drift away, that's a good thing. You know.
You guys are trained artists in the sense of traditional artistry, of learning perspectives and these kind of things. Is there a lot of that you reuse in VR drawing?
Yeah, basically, yeah. Like the way how I approach my scenes is like I approach like an illustration. So,
right.
The way how I paint lighting in a normal illustration is also the way how I approach it in virtual reality. I mean, yeah, except for all the technical stuff, of course. But yeah.
I really like. Because like you are literally seeing it with two eyes, and you don't have to fake perspective, like in a normal illustration where you have to create a convincing version of a three-dimensional space. I think it's really fun to deliberately make wonky stuff. It's like deliberately make this kind of like stage where you exaggerate the perspective and things get flatter the further out they get and stuff like this. I mean, it's great that since you're seeing with two eyes, it's like it's a lot easier actually to make things convincing because it is there. It's good. It's good because it's easier.
Yes, it sounds like it's also, and drawing in particular, because of the physical involvement and because of the kind of a new type of also looking at what you're doing and the technical skill set applied. It sounds that it's a little bit more accessible, and it could be something that kids play with and learn immediately as well as adults. Which makes it a tool that effectively allows pretty much anyone to create a world that they can immerse themselves in and that is theirs, which is kind of new and really interesting. Have you witnessed that with friends or people that you show it to, that immediately they start to create their own things? Is something that happened?
Yeah, I mean, Titlbrush, for example, opened it up to like a large audience that everybody can make the spaces, and that's what virtual reality is all about. Creating your own spaces and being able to share it. That's where the whole metaverse idea comes from. So there's this nice poetic vision of everybody being able to share their own visions and you being able to visit it. I mean, even people who have a hard time expressing themselves, like in traditional art or something, can at least make something for their children to, enjoy, their imagination.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really amazing to visit like a little space that someone has created. Like it's, you know, like they have constructed a three-dimensional world for you to visit, and it's like, you know, it's just really interesting seeing what people choose to do with that. Especially when it's like, you know, you're all sharing the same tools. Like for instance, if you're all using Titlbrush and you understand it, and then you see how someone else is approaching the exact same set of, you know, variables to create something entirely different. It feels like being inside someone's brain or something.
Is there on the tools themselves? So right now, I mean, the early Titlbrush, they were kind of all looking the same. There is a lot of talking about the limitation, but it's been evolving pretty fast. And then Medium and Quill are coming now. Do you guys have specific expectations with regards to tools? Is there something that you're waiting for in particular?
Well, the things I do.
Maybe Facebook is listening. I don't know.
Well, like creating a diorama and the way I approach it is not possible with Titlbrush. Quill comes close. You can also export your things and stuff, but I think those softwares already succeeded in what they wanted to do, and that's make something accessible that everybody can, you know, share their imagination. So they already succeeded in that. I mean, it would be cool to do everything in virtual reality. Would also be a lot more fun to do in virtual reality. And the problem with virtual reality is that you only know if it works when you're in virtual reality. Because like it was something Troy also mentioned, something can look good on a screen, but it doesn't mean it looked good in virtual reality, and vice versa. So hopefully one day you can create everything from virtual reality.
And do you think it's soon? I mean, do you see yourself like working in with VR tools, native VR tools?
Well, maybe in the pre-production phase or setting up things, but you know, you need more control, and that's still something that's easier done on in 3ds Max or modeling software.
Right.
But give it some time; it'll be okay.
I really want 3D tools in VR. Like Titlbrush is like it's a 3D painting. Like it's like all these like there's not. I made a terrible mistake in always trying to paint like volumes in Titlbrush. Well, most people don't do this, so it's very time-consuming for me because it's like I'm making stuff out of paper, like just kind of like layering these things to create volumes, and like I really just can't wait till there's like Cinema 4D or something like this inside 3D. I mean, there is stuff like Oculus Medium. I haven't tried it actually. I don't have access to a headset anymore, unfortunately. If anyone from
Ding.
oh, okay, there we go. Free 5 for me. But yeah, it's yeah. But what are we talking about? 3D stuff.
Yeah, and if you see if there's something in the tools that you'd like to see, like what's missing right now, and what would you like to have?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for me, it's for 3D modeling for sure. It's like sculpting, like 3D sculpting tools. This would be amazing.
So mixing all the medias, like traditional 3D software, modeling, and being able to import. You can do some of it in Titlbrush, but it's limited. No, you can start to import some assets.
You can import assets, but you can't change them.
Right. Okay.
But I mean, I this is something I have been thinking about though. Is like you could actually make stuff by importing spheres and cubes and then building it with those. You just wouldn't be able to change their shape. But I mean, if I get a Vive again, I would like to try this. I would really like to make a project where I create all the assets inside VR, particularly like Oculus Medium or something.
Yeah. They're releasing quite a lot of updates. I've seen the rhythm of patching is fairly fast. So maybe the time or the day that you can, Daniel, you can work straight in VR, immerse yourself, derealize completely yourself with reality is actually quite soon.
And with other people as well. That would be fun. So.
Right. I'd like to open also the floor for some questions. If you have any questions to Daniel and Troy. Take this. Yeah.
Any questions out there? We can take one or two. Okay. Yeah, we're all a bit exhausted in the afternoon. So big thank you for Daniel and Troy for being here with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.